Hello everyone, and welcome to the Introduction to Python. All right, in this course, once again, this course is basically about object-oriented. However, to allow us to start writing object-oriented code, specifically in Python, we need to learn a little bit about Python. So we're going to spend the next few weeks doing that. Shouldn't be too troubling to any of you. Matter of fact, it should be pretty interesting in the fact that it's a new language to you. Some of you may already know it, but it's also a very quick and easy language to learn. I think you're going to be quite impressed. The objectives of this particular video we're going to walk through is we're going to talk about what Python is, its history, what can it do, some of the features of it, things are just good to know before we get started, and how to get your environment all set up. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. So what is Python? Python is a high-level interpreted, interactive, and object-oriented scripting language. Its name is derived from Mighty Python, not the snake itself, but Mighty Python, the comedy group out of England. Some of you may remember, or some of you might not have any idea what I'm talking about, but Mighty Python was a pretty funny group way back when. Anyway, with that said, Python is designed to be highly readable. It uses the English keywords frequently, whereas other languages uses punctuation and fewer syntactical constructions in other languages. This is actually a pretty easy language to understand, learn, maintain, and so on. I think you're going to find it to be a lot of fun to write. Python is interpreted. What's that mean? Well, so far, the languages that you should know, like Visual Basic, it's a compiled language, meaning for what happens is that you basically write the program, it compiles and creates machine language, and you execute then that executable, if you will. You actually run the executable. Interpreted language literally is interpreted, compiled, into machine language, but interpreted into machine language as you go. That makes it pretty interesting. I'll give you a little secret we'll talk about a little bit later on too. Python can also be compiled, but for the most part, it's an interpretive language. Some people like that, some people don't like that. The one thing it could do is slow things down because when Python actually runs, it must interpret it into machine language and then run the command. So it could slow some things down. But based upon how it works and how it's interpreted, it's very flexible. It's interactive. You can actually sit at the Python prompt, basically your command line, and write code one line at a time and actually watch it work. It's one of the only languages that I know of that you can really do that. It's pretty slick in that case. All right, and we'll play around with that as we kind of get going. It is object-oriented. Python supports object-oriented style or technique of programming that encapsulate codes within objects. That's good because we're going to talk a lot about object-oriented in this course. History. Python was developed by Guido von Rossum. I'm going to say it like that. We'll just call him Guido for short. In the late 80s and early 90s at the National Research Institute for the Mathematics and Computer Science in the Netherlands. I think you guys should have a homework assignment developing a brand new language like this. Python is derived from many other languages. As you always notice that we probably talk about this in courses quite a bit, that many languages are derived from other languages. In this case, ABC, Modulus-3, pretty old stuff. Algol 68, I assume that's back in 1968. Smalltalk, C, C++, and the Unix shell and other scripting languages. Many things are derived from C and C++. I think you'll see some things in here that you'll see how this all works. So Python has been around, and Guido took a lot of concepts from a lot of languages to derive this one. It's still maintained by the core development team at the Institute. I guess that's the National Research Institute for Mathematics and Computer Science, although Guido still holds a vital role in directing its process. So Guido's still around. What can it do? It's almost down to what Python cannot do. Python can be used because of its flexibility. I'm sorry, I interrupted myself here, but because of its flexibility, Python can do a lot of things. It can create web applications. I'm hoping to get into that a little bit in this course, okay? And we'll see a little bit of that. Python can be used alongside software to create workflows. Python can connect to databases. We'll get into a little bit of that. Python can be used to handle big data and perform complex mathematics. That's allowed. And what's nice about Python is it can do that complex mathematics, and a lot of the reasons they wanted it one line at a time that you can actually interact with the command prompt was because of this mathematic type abilities. Python can be used for rapid prototyping or for production software development. So you can do just about anything you want to do with Python. You can even write Windows-based code and have Python sitting behind it. So Python is a very flexible language that a lot of people like, and the reason they like it so well is because it's so easy to learn. Its features. Hey, did I say easy to learn? There you go. It is easy to learn. There's very few keywords. There's very simple structures and a clearly defined syntax. This allows the student to pick up the language very quickly, and you will, trust me, after this week. It's easy to read. It's a very easy language to read from somebody picking it up. Thus, it's easy to maintain. There's a broad standard library. Python has a lot of libraries out there full of functions already pre-written for you. We'll talk about that as we continue on with this week's content, but primarily there's a lot there that you can actually utilize already. Python has support for interactive mode, which allows interactive testing and debugging of snippets of code. It's portable. What's nice about Python is it can work on Windows, it can work on a Mac, it can work on Linux, it can work on Unix, it can work on just about any system that you want Python to work on. As some of you might already know, Raspberry Pis are very popular. Raspberry Pis can be programmed in Python and usually C. That's the two languages I know of, but a lot of people are programming those in Python right now. Python provides data interfaces to all major commercial databases, so SQL servers, MySQL, and so on. All Python can actually utilize those, read those, and use SQL as its language to do so. Python supports GUI applications that can be created and ported to many system calls, libraries, and Windows systems such as Windows, Macintosh, and X Windows systems of Unix. It supports the functional and structural programming methods as well as OOP. So you can write Python as an object-oriented programming language or as not an object-oriented programming language, more structured. As we begin this particular course, our next several weeks will be more structured, then we'll get into object-oriented for the remainder of it. It can be used as a scripting language or it can be compiled. I mentioned that before. That's pretty wild that they actually do both. It provides very high-level dynamic data types and supports dynamic type checking. You'll see the data types again starting this week, what it supports. They're very high level. They're not overly specific like you might be used to in other programming languages. It supports automatic garbage collection. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get into object-oriented, what that all means. It can easily be integrated with C, C++, COM, ActiveX, Corba, and Java, I should say, not or, but and Java. So it's very flexible and it can be integrated very simply to work with many of these other languages. Python right now is up to Python 3 as of this recording. If you're listening to this recording in a few years from now, it might be up to Python 4, but as this recording is Python 3. However, Python 2 is still highly supported, and the pretty big price with Python 3 was a few new functions that are out there for you and a lot of security updates. Python can be written in any kind of editor. When I say any kind, there are many kind of editors, from Notepad++, a very simple Notepad editor, to an integrated development environment such as Visual Studio. In this course, we'll use Visual Studio. Since that's what you're used to, we'll go ahead and create some Python products, applications through that. But I also welcome you to try Notepad and so on. You'll see that what we're doing is we're simply creating a .py type of extension form, and that's what you actually run it on. All right? So you can use Eclipse, which you use quite a bit for Java, and so on. All right? Let's continue on. The setup. Many PCs and Macs have Python already installed. Windows 10 and Python should be installed in its own application. However, you can check this if you have Python installed on your Windows PC, search in the start bar for Python or run the following on the command line. I'm going to show you how to get in there in 1 second, okay, as we kind of go through it. If you feel you don't have Python on your PC, or if Visual Studio is not working correctly, All you got to do is go to python.org, and if you do that, it'll show you how to download Python to your PC. What's that mean, downloading Python? Once again, there's libraries and such, and an interpreter that needs to be downloaded to your PC for Python to work. The interpreter is a piece of software that's basically saying every line of code you give me, I'm going to interpret it to machine language. Remember, computers only understand machine language. They do not understand programming languages. All of them have to be either interpreted or compiled down to machine language. So that needs to be installed on your machine for Python to work. Okay? And once again, there are libraries such as libraries for functions and so on that will hold those different functions. When I say functions, procedures, basically little snippets of code that people that's already written for you that's very common. Those are there also and must be downloaded. All right? As I said here, now it's time to get started programming in Python. I agree. Let's just kind of go out of here for a second, if you will. And if I come over here and come up to it, this is a Windows 10 machine. Whoops, let me get off of that. Sorry. Let's try this one more time. A Windows 10 machine, if I know how to use it. Maybe not. There we go. And I come down here, I will find Python actually in my list, okay? And I welcome you to do the same. If you don't have this, it's not that big a deal, okay? But we're going to use the 64-bit 3.6 Python. This came with my machine. I don't know everybody's machine out there, but Python is right here. If I click on this, this comes to something similar like a command prompt for me, all right? You're going to have to determine what's your environment and how it's set up and if you have this or not. Regardless, that's what we're looking for here. And if I sit back and do a very simple print, hello world, this is a Python command, print. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And as you see, when I actually typed that in and clicked on it and interact with it, it actually did print hello world. Yay, our first Python program. Let's see if you can get that working like that, okay? So see if you can find that, that particular Python on your machine. If you cannot, follow what I stated on the video a couple slides ago, where you need to go and to your command prompt, and to get there, you just type in command prompt, and you will find, if I can type, there it is, the command prompt right there, and you can actually try to see if you have Python on there by doing the search on it that I gave you in that slide before. All right, right now my Python is set up this way. Everything is there, everything is ready to go. I can interact and literally write a whole program line by line if I really wanted to. Or what I can do here, we'll kind of get into this a little bit later, is I can execute a .py Python file right from here. Or what we'll do is we're going to get into writing a program this way, which is Python. We're going to show you this, which is all in Visual Studio. And then there you go. We'll explain this a little bit more when we get into it. And then there's our Python program. All right, and this was all done in Visual Studio. Something you'll be familiar with, something you can take advantage of, especially in IntelliSense. That's all part of this. All right, so like my last slide basically stated, if I go all the way back down here again, now it's time to get started programming in Python. Make sure your environment's set up, make sure you have Visual Studio, make sure you're ready to go, and then go on to the next video and we'll get you started.